10th of December, which is in a few days, the world gets to celebrate the Human Rights Day. But then again, when we look back in history, 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and this year they're marking the 75th of these celebrations, which is a good thing. But in Uganda, hundreds of people have been abducted and disappeared from sight for long, and state claiming no custody. You do have some that have reappeared, seemingly brutalized, allegedly in state custody. And as we get to look forward to celebrating the International Day of Human Rights, we get to weigh in on the state and what the human rights look like for us here in Uganda. Now, joining me is Dr. Adrian Juko, who's an activist when it comes to human rights awareness and promotion forum. Good morning to you, Doctor, and you're most welcome to the program.
Good morning, Priscilla. Thank you for having me.
And I'm also joined by Asman Matovu, who's an advocate, Musangara Advocates and Solicitors. You're most welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Now let's first talk about the Human Rights Day as we get to celebrate the 75th of its nature. What does that look like and translate for us here in Uganda? And let me start with you, Doctor, especially on the theme of dignity, freedom, justice for all.
Thank you very much. Human Rights Day is an important day, and everyone should really be celebrating it, even I think more than we do Christmas and other days, because this is the day that the United Nations basically promulgated the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So it's 75 years now since states agreed that, you know what, we have to protect our citizens. So if you look back at the horrors of the Second World War, the kidnappings, the disappearances, the killing of the Jews and other minorities, we've come a long way since then. States have now agreed, including the Ugandan state, that human rights bind us. And binding means that we have to do what human rights say, what the law says. We've included human rights in our constitution as Uganda. And I think our constitution now, since 1995, is making quite a number of years also. So, beautiful day, beautiful theme. I like that. Dignity, freedom, and justice for all. For all means that, for all means for all. You know, you can't say all means a few people. All means all. So that means that even those that are not liked, even those that are discriminated, even those that are seen as minorities have to be included as part of human rights.
Okay. All right. Council, yes. In regards to what Doctor has mentioned, that human rights is embedded in our constitution. Now, for the people that you have had to represent whose human rights have been taken away or infringed on, do you feel that as far as the Constitution and judiciary is concerned, it is supporting the dignity and the humanity and the freedom and justice for all?
For starters, we have to know what are human rights. Human rights, these are rights where an individual has to enjoy. They are not granted by the state or the government, they are born to that individual. Let us say a right to life, a right to liberty. There is no one who will say that except with a lawful court order, someone terminates someone's life. And in so doing, you are seeing that people have been ended up being charged with offenses of murder and so on and so forth. The aftermath of the World War II brought a lot of challenges in the entire world, whereby there was a lot of gross human rights violation. And it is to that extent that UN, through its Council of Human Rights, sat and said we should come up with a standard with which these countries are supposed to follow. And among them, we have the 1995 Constitution, Uganda adopting almost all the human rights within. When you look at Article 20 to Article around 44, it lists a variety of those different human rights, among which we have those basic ones. And as the judiciary, its duty mainly is to ensure that these rights are being protected. For instance, where there is an infringement under Article 50, you are free to enforce the violation of such what? Human rights. And the judiciary has always come up to pronounce itself whether indeed the right has been violated and what remedy is available to such victims.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Dr. Juko, in regards to dignity, freedom and justice, in Uganda presently, what would you consider as injustices to human rights, indignified acts to human rights, as well as the ones that have taken away the freedoms of the people of Uganda?
Before I answer that, let me first respond a little bit to my colleague about the Constitution of Uganda. Important document, very important. But for me, documents are simply documents until we breathe life in them as citizens. So yes, he says that the courts are there and they have been willing and able to enforce. But in a situation where you see that there is a lot of interference with the independence of the judiciary, how does that work out in terms of human rights? So if the courts of law give you a court order, like this Friday we got a court order basically nullifying provisions of the penal code. But if the parliament doesn't act and removes them from the law books, if the court issues an order, no one cares, like most times it happens, what does that mean for people? If I go to court, for example, there's a court case we took to court over for 20 people who had been arrested during COVID-19, we took the case to court and won. The court gave us an order and gave each of these people 5 million shillings. You think we've gotten a single coin up to now? And I don't think we are getting it anytime soon. You see? So why do I go to court? Why should a citizen go to court and a constitution that's progressive, but then nothing happens? So for me, all these things point to a working democracy, a thriving and living democracy. I don't think we have a thriving and working democracy in this country. So for me, again, now tagging your question about injustices, lots of things are happening right now that you'd look at and say like, 1995, when this people were in when this people were in the CA, Constituent Assembly, putting up this parliament, putting up this constitution, did they actually expect these things to happen? Right now we have lots of abductions that are going on in this country. All of us cannot hide. It has been a matter of public importance even in parliament. We can't hide away from the fact that that's happening. Drones now have become drones. I know people from outside Uganda would wonder what drones are because they know different types of drones. But for us, the drones that we have here, and everyone understands this in Uganda, it's becoming a dangerous trend. People are abducted every single day, kidnapped and put in jail. And usually, you see nothing happening. You see no compensation. You see no redress being given to them. And that's not fair. We see lots of issues involving land. Land grabbings across the country, citizens crying out every single day for the government to come in and rescue them. We see lots of violations on issues to do with treatment. For example, the right to health has become a big problem in Uganda. It's now a constitutionally protected right. But how many of us have access to decent medication? How many of us have access to a hospital that can actually give us services as Ugandans? All these are matters of human rights. Education, health are also matters of serious concern in this country.
Okay, that's a big picture that you have painted, because many people look at it in terms of, you know, just the right to life and all and so on. But in you painting the picture and broadening it to health, education for that matter, it shows you that there's a lot that is being infringed on, and the naked eye may not be realizing it or cannot speak about it because of, you know, the environment that surrounds it. Now, turning to you, Mr. Matovu, in regards to the same, he has made mention of the disappearances, the drone syndrome that we do have in Uganda here. This morning you see someone, by afternoon someone has a car has whisked them away and you don't know where they are and where to start from. The other day we were talking to some journalists who made it clear that while they have tried to trace through the right channels, for example police, to demand for where these people are, police has come out to also tell them that we also don't know where to start from, neither can we, you know, get into that matter. And yet it's happening here in Uganda. So from where you see it, how is this translating into what is human rights infringement?
Yes, the challenge goes to the government still, because when you look at who's responsible to protect the citizens, it is the government. And when you look at the police has the mandate of preserving life, keeping law and order. It is very surprising that if someone has been abducted in broad daylight, this person runs to where he expects help, and reaching there, police says, we don't know where this person is. Try elsewhere. Why do you have to tell this person to go and look into different corners of the country? Yet it is your mandate, it is your obligation. You have been given the resources. This shows uncoordination within the security agencies. We have the police, we have the military. Under the military, we have the different wings. We have the SMI, we have the SFs, among others. Why doesn't the security organs organize themselves in such actions to happen? They know where to begin from. There is no reason why you go to police, they tell you, you try SMI. You try SMI, they tell you, you try SIU. You try SIU, they say you try crime intelligence. It becomes a bit challenging to a citizen where he expects to enjoy such. Besides that, even the government itself through its organs. Why do you go to such barbaric acts of abductions? The Constitution is very clear. When you look at Article 23, right to liberty, as you intend to arrest this person has a right to be informed of the nature of the charges you intend to place to him. Also, he has other rights. Right to inform the next of kin, right to a lawyer, among others, which are not happening here. And these are all indicators of human rights violations. They are contrary to what the law says. So, as security organs, this is a time where you are supposed to team up. One day the IGP came up and said, we are no longer going to use drones. No arresting individuals without uniforms, but the same is still moving and everyone is very quiet. As Matov, there is nothing best I can do except talking about it. You holding a piece of paper going to demonstrate, it is also an issue. So the best is to talk about it. The best is to bring light to where these dark spots are. So to me, if such acts are still existing, these are all clear indicators of human rights violations. All
right, we do have freedom of speech and expression. Dr. Juko, Matovu here has said that he can only now speak about it. But who knows, that may also be taken away from him and he may disappear because of talking about it. And so many people have gone the route of, okay, let's just talk about it. But even talking about it has caused them more harm than good.
Actually, many people are always like, you know what, don't say anything about human rights in Uganda because that will land you in trouble. So this fear, this love for self-preservation is something that everyone is learning these days as things get worse in this country. It's a dangerous trend though. You know what? You know, if we only talk about self-preservation, that I should not say, I should not talk because I may be arrested. I may not talk because I should not talk because I may be disappeared. That's actually true, and sometimes it happens. People talk, then they get disappeared. But then for me, what do we have to do as citizens? You know, I told you before that the Constitution is a piece of paper. Until you give it the value that it deserves, you know, until citizens stand up and say this Constitution has to be respected. So the power is supposed to be in our hands, not in the hands of the state. The state may have soldiers, may have the army, but we are the owners of this country, not the state.
Dr. Chuko, you sit here. Last week we had an incident in Parliament. Honorable Zake tabled this whole thing of abductions and disappearances of people as a concern to parliamentarians. And guess what happened? He was remanded to the Discipline Committee by the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, simply for voicing the people's concern at present time. Yes, there are other things that need to be attended to. But this is causing a lot of fear. So if you're saying that, and yet the reality we just saw of it last week in the highest level of legislation, what should we do?
But where are the people? I don't see the people. When your MP stands up and says, I'm doing this on a matter of national importance, and then is dragged off to the whisked off to the Disciplinary Committee of Parliament, where are the people? Sometimes I ask myself, where are Ugandans?
Which people are you referring to?
I'm referring to Ugandans. Me, you, him, and the average Ugandan who is now in their garden or who is watching us right now. Where are they? When the things are happening, when do we stand up and show that, you know what, we exist?
Okay, Dr. Juko, how do you want the Ugandans to respond to what happened to one?
Well, Ugandans should be able to say, to speak out, to also move. I know we have things like if you speak out, you are arrested. If you march on the streets, you are tear gassed and beaten up. But I think we have to get emboldened at one point. Get out of our comfort zones and get the tear gas. I don't think that the government has enough tear gas to finish 43 million Ugandans.
I know they bought tear gas worth 3 billion Ugandan shillings recently for a peace country.
Right.
So,
there's nowhere in the world.
That means that they're ready to handle any people like that.
There's nowhere in the world where the government has successfully handled the people. In other words, if people decide that this is not what we want, then that's not what they want. So for me, I think it's a matter of communicating to people, telling them what their power is. Article 1 of the Constitution, all power belongs to the people, no one else. So for me, I think if we sensitize, engage people, talk to them right now with our TV screens if we can, mobilize them. When you see such things happening, you speak up. When you see drones arresting people, you speak up. Speaking up is dangerous, I know. But that's the only way I think we have to get to where I want to go, freedom.
And there's some Ugandans who are looking at you, they say, it's easy for you to say Dr. Juko. Is it easy for you to listen to Mr. Matov in regards to, let's just take the case of Honorable Zake.
In regard to Honorable Zake's case, yes, what he did was right. of bringing out such acts, because sometimes if you don't speak, you die. If you speak, you still do what?
You
die.
still die.
So sometimes it is better you speak and you die. To whom you have spoken to, they have heard. The challenge with him is the procedure through which he brought this aspect. You know, sometimes you may be right, but the channels you take or the procedure you take may take everything wrong. The contention between him and the parliament by then, what the deputy speaker was challenging him about was the procedure through which he was airing out this aspect of abductions. Yes, he was right in his own way, and he was right according to the Ugandans. And also the parliament should ask itself, why is it that, because I don't think Honorable Zake doesn't know the rules of procedure. He knows the rules of procedure. But he had a reason, regardless of whatever the rules were, he said, this is the time for me to speak. Sometimes you speak in corridors, in cameras, and the state does not act. And the reason why we are debating about it is that now it has become a public concern. Everyone is, hey, what happened in parliament? Honorable Zake spoke about ABCD. Had he spoken it maybe in the corridors or somewhere, it would be totally different. So sometimes the situations we live in force us to do things that we are not supposed to do. So yes, he was right, but the procedure through which he brought this aspect was wrong.
I am going to twist it a little bit. And I of course, I have to respect procedure. That's how it should work. But then again, perhaps if he was not a member of parliament that is on the opposition side, hypothetically speaking, would this case have turned out differently? Would he have gotten the ear of the deputy speaker?
If he was not from the opposition side, of course you wouldn't expect such to happen. Because I don't think this is the first time human rights violations are being brought up in parliament. And who's bringing it out? It is the opposition. It is not from the other side. Yes, the other side may be concerned, but for some reasons or the other, these are people who will just keep quiet and watch as things move on. It is except the bold ones who would say, I'm ready for whatever will happen. I have to bring this out. So that is the difference.
Dr. Juko, as you come in with your response and still aligning it with what I've just asked Mr. Matovu here, and also bringing to the light the fact that opposition is meant to be the alternative form of governance that is supposed to ensure that there's checks and balances to what we're paying attention to in real time.
Right. So for me, my take again, first of all, on Honorable Zake's situation, whether he was out of order or out of procedure, whatever it is, you know, at some point, you have to get to a point where procedures shouldn't matter, especially when the government itself does not make them matter. So what is all that decorum about in parliament? Dress up this way, speak this way, don't stand up when you've not been given permission, yet no one respects it outside of parliament. The state is doing whatever it wants, the way it wants. So the way in which they abduct people, is that how they're supposed to arrest people? Even if they have an issue with the people, there's a proper procedure laid down in the constitution how you're supposed to arrest people. Why doesn't anyone blame the government for failing to do what it's supposed to do in terms of procedure? Then they blame an MP for standing up on a point of national importance and then being booed by the majority and by the deputy speaker and everyone in parliament. So for me, the issue of there's a point where we have to get to, where we have to use these institutions for actual democratic debate, regardless of procedures and what this is about. And for me, it's not even been a matter of the opposition. The opposition is, yes, it's government in waiting, but look at the opposition in Uganda. How many are they? Really, there are very few to make an impact in that parliament. Whatever the government wants in that parliament usually goes through without any debate, without any discussions, without anything. We've seen all sorts of loan arguments going through, all sorts of money questions going through without the opposition being able to stop it because they don't have the numerical strength to
world. Watching Morning at NTV.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Morning at NTV, our Kickstarter, looking at the records of human rights in Uganda, while in a few days we get to commemorate for the 75th time Internationally World Human Rights Day. My name is Priscilla Regina Naloga, and in case you've just joined us, thank you so much. You can stream live on our social media platforms, on Facebook as well as YouTube. Just type in the hashtag NTV, Morning at NTV, and you'll be able to get this conversation on your phone as you go about your business. But your business is being affected by what's happening around us, and so we're tackling the human rights in Uganda, what it looks like right now and what's the remedy at the end of the day. We were touching base with the issue of what happened to Honorable Zake and what the interpretation of that is and what picture it paints over the state, over the legislation arm of Ugandans, and over the procedures of things that are done day to day to the normal average Ugandan. And of course, painting that picture for us was Dr. Adrian Juko, who is an activist as well as a human rights awareness and promotion forum. We do have Asuman Matovu, counsel, who has also been able to let us know that what we have best right now in our hands is the freedom to speak, which freedom is also being infringed on Musangala advocates and solicitors. But we also do have Mr. Alan Chigozi, who said, no, I must be a part of this conversation because I do believe it's patent to human rights. Thank you so much, Mr. Chigozi, for joining us on this debate.
The pleasure is all mine.
Okay, so you joined us at a part where we were looking at Honorable Zake, what happened to him last week. The gentleman next to you said that rules of procedure had to be followed, therefore what happened to him had to happen to him. We do have Dr. Juko there, who has said this gives you a picture of how the state is handling matters down to the last person. What is your 2 cents on that?
Now, first of all, I applaud the Honorable Zake. You know, nothing works in Uganda. It's jungle law. You know, we are talking about human life, and you're talking about procedure. I think I also agree with the Honorable Chagulanyi, who told his MPs that, look, stop talking about policy. People are being abducted. You're looking at them as members of NUP, but these are fathers. People's nails are being plucked out. People are losing their lives. Police is killing people in broad daylight. Remember what happened during the 21 elections? You know, police cars stepping over NUP supporters, people dying. And you call that normal? And you call for procedure? We are living in very funny circumstances that don't even require. In fact, as a matter of fact, anything else must stop. And we address this. I mean, let's stop this political opposition, NRM, procedure. People's lives are being lost. People are being abducted. You saw how the other Muslim cleric was arrested. Very shaming. And you call for procedure? I think that was the right thing. That's not the first time that issue came up. Okay? I think the opposition noticed that, look, we've brought this over and over, and nothing is being done substantially. So I think those in power should reflect. We are living in very dangerous times. I was listening, and my colleagues were saying that, you see, we've done all avenues of intellectual discourse have been closed. So what we have to do is talk. But you see, it's very dangerous if all you have is talk. Then I think that's the last stage of cancer. You know, when you have cancer, all you have to do is pray if you are on stage 4. Let's pray and see if God does what he can do. At this point in Uganda, if all you have is talk, I'm afraid lightning is about to strike. And if it strikes, chances are even us who have been keeping quiet are going to be affected. You get it? So if you talk, you will die. If you don't talk, if you riot, I mean,
still die.
What kind of country is this? 36 years in power, and all you do is kill your very people. What exactly have Ugandans not given this regime that we should... Let them say it. Let them tell us what they want us to give them. We give it to them. If it means, you know, letting go of elections, and this whole political thing, and it becomes a monarchy. Let it be a monarchy.
But taken away a right at the same time, if that is what they would be saying they want.
But they've taken away everything. What right is meaningfully enjoyed in Uganda? Is it right to education? I mean, you have the Minister of Education cutting short a school term and allowing concerts going on, allowing other events going on. You get my point? What life is meaningfully enjoyed in Uganda? You get my point? So if we clothe ourselves in a democratic suit, we ought to pay the price that comes with democracy. Democracy comes with sharing ideas, freedom of expression. Dr. Juko supporting yellow, and I'm just using that as an illustration. And me supporting, say, red. You get my point? It comes with coming up with opinions that are not favorable with those in power.
Absolutely.
That is the price. You get my point? You know, if you can't really pay that price, then definitely this is a dictatorship. Declare a monarchy. At least we will save lives, because
let me turn to the advocate, Mr. Matovu.
Yes.
In this regard, while you are guided by rules of procedure in whatever it is that you do we still say that we have the acclaimed peace existing in Uganda?
Generally, there is peace, despite the fact that there are shortcomings from the government. If there was no peace, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be discussing about this. Past regimes, it was hard even to express about something, even to mention a particular word. There are certain countries, I'll give an example, like North Korea, like Afghanistan, like Syria. Visiting these countries is a tug of war. Somalia here, our neighbor. Uganda is one of the most harboring countries when it comes to hospitality. Yes, despite the challenges of the government, but peace is there. But these are challenges which the government has to work on. You know, sometimes even if you have done something good, and at the end of the day, you put it in the mud, then there is a way people interpret it. They disregard what you have done, and they look at the bad you have committed. So this is a wake-up call to the government. For the time it has been in power, what is so hard to ensure that these rights are protected? Why should you just abduct someone? The procedure is clear. After all, even if you don't want to alert the other person, that person will automatically know. Because as you abduct, information will pass out. Someone has been arrested, someone has been abducted, among others. So there is nothing you are hiding. It is better to follow the procedure. Yes, everyone can be arrested, but you arrest me with a cause. You don't just have to come and abduct me, take me somewhere. Certain families hold funerals for their loved ones. They have spent 1 year, 2 years, the loved ones are nowhere to be seen. And at the end of the day, these people resurrect with no hope. They tell you the circumstances under which they have gone through. So it is really challenging, and the government must wake up. These aspects of denying we don't know where these people are, we just hear ABCD, you try to check with the same way, you try to check. It is the obligation of the state. It is the obligation of the government. If they are saying this person is missing, it is your mandate to investigate. Where is this person? And present a report. Than you denying and sitting in the office. So it is a wake-up call to the government to do what is required. We have the law, it needs to be worked on.
All right, I believe that it's also a wake-up call for, you know, human rights organization, advocates, and what you're doing right now. It's a wake-up call not to just do the condemnation speech in front of the public, the cameras, and let us know that you're talking about it. What is the practical part of ensuring the protection of human rights in Uganda?
Well, for starters, I took off my tie because we had too many ties
Yeah,
here.
and you know, in the morning I was tempted to wear a tie. Now I know why I was tempted.
There would have been too many ties in
Yeah.
that place. But also, at the same time, to show that human rights is also not about ties and professionals and procedures and things like that. That also is about ordinary people and common people. And for me, my theme, again, from where I started, is about ordinary people taking things into their own hands. My colleague spoke about peace in this country. Well, my definition of peace is not the absence of war. Maybe we don't have war in Uganda, but maybe we have war in Uganda. What's going on people's stomachs? What's going on in people's pockets? What's going on in people's health? What's going on? So which kind of war do we want in the world that we're seeing right now? For being abducted, there's no peace. In Uganda, we have guns all over, on every single street. You may think we're in a war zone, which I think we are. When you go to other countries that are more sane than ours, you don't find guns moving on the street the way they do in this country. Here, everyone moves with a gun, everyone with power. On the road, everyone with a siren. Even taxi drivers have sirens. Even borders have sirens. Ministers, everyone has a siren in this country. Which kind of peace are we talking about in this country where there's no order? You have no order. You have all sorts of issues. So as human rights activists, of course, it's our mandate to speak out as human rights defenders. But there's the concept of security for human rights defenders. Like, again, what we've been talking about, that if something happens to me because of my talking out, who is going to be behind my back? They usually ask us, for those of us in civil society, that if you are closed down today, how many people are going to demonstrate against your closure? Of course, it comes partly to our own, how we organize ourselves as a society, but also a society that doesn't normally care about what happens. Not that they don't care, they really know and understand what we're doing. But for them, they think they cannot stand up because of what they have been led to believe is how government is supposed to be. For the past 50 or so years we've been in this country, we had the Obotes, we had the Aminis, we had violence. Now we have Museveni. Violence continues. So Ugandans have been brought up in a way to think that violence is the way to go. So you have to refrain. When the state acts, you refrain. You don't do anything as a Ugandan. But for me, I think as Ugandans, the power still lies in our hands. We can, without even taking up arms, stand up as Ugandans and be able to change this country. That's what happens in any democracy, in any country. You can't just sit and say, hey, we are good, we're enjoying this peace. Which peace are you enjoying? I'm enjoying none.
All right. Is it war in the stomach, war in the pockets? When you broaden the spectrum of war, then there's surely some wars that people are dealing with. Okay, Mr. Chigozi, in regards to what has been submitted, you mentioned something earlier that we are at stage 4 of cancer in Uganda, but also you made mention of the fact that perhaps we are still dealing with the effects of the Obote era and the Amin era, while we are taking on more. So that combination with the present day infringement on human rights, where are we going? What's the way forward?
The way forward is, one, I would really ask, it's my call to those in power to reflect, because clearly all signs and symptoms that took them to the bush are here. People were being abducted. Then there used to be doctors, prominent lawyers, prominent figures in the society. Now it's the wananchi. Market vendors are being abducted. Doesn't that scare you to the bone? It does. I mean, people are losing lives. All signs and symptoms that took them to the bush are here. So we don't know who is planning what. People are conspicuously quiet. Religious leaders are quiet. I know. Even those you call opposition are in a funny way quiet, No, that should scare us. That shouldn't even give the regime elevated ego to think that they've controlled the masses, so no one is talking. You had better let people talk. You had better let people express themselves, convene, share ideas. Then you know what exactly are in people's minds. You don't know, because you've killed someone's father, you've abducted someone's father, someone's business has been lost, and what do you think is going on? I even don't know how these guys eat, sleep after plucking out people's nails. Someone's nails, legs have been amputated, people have lost lives, and you still eat sausages, and you still call for policy. My colleague here has just alluded to the fact that we have peace. Man, the Speaker of Parliament is calling for more security for her life. The Minister of Investment is calling for more security for her life. These guys can't even be in jam for 1 second. They've violated all traffic laws. Why? Because we don't have security. Almost everyone who has a connection to the NRM or to the powers that be is calling for beef up of mob security. That is not peace.
Okay.
That should scare us.
In closure.
So in closure, we should reflect. Those who are keeping quiet, speak up. Because even when you don't, history will judge you harshly. The effects of Obote are still living with us. The effects of Amin are still living us. And unfortunately, those of us or our parents who faced such ruthlessness remained here. They didn't have the privilege of running away. Obote and Amin had the privilege of running away. Maybe Museveni will have the privilege and his family to run away. Now, I feel sorry for those who support and have no problem with the conduct of this regime, because you will be here and you will call us to analyze if life is there. Take this word to the bank. They are going to pay for it.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Juko. Thank you so much, Mr. Matuvu, and thank you so much, Mr. Chigozi, for bringing to realities the tracking of human rights record here in Uganda. And of course, to wrap it all up, it is just a matter of when we do this, all these three are pointing to us, while the two are pointing to whoever we think our oppressor is.